one. Happy
Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Every Wednesday, count on seeing Wayne's World and Kelly. And always a great guest. We have David Ward back on, and we're excited to have David. We're going to talk about some stuff for Shark Month. So, Shark Month is about legalities, what's going on in the world of condos and HOAs in regards to the law. And some attorneys and some not are really great about this, but also there's just some people like AKAM employees and other people in the industry that are, y'all have to stay on top of it. But so that's what we're going to talk about this great Wednesday morning, where it's a beautiful day in South Florida and Central Florida for Wayne. I guess is it beautiful there today, Wednesday?
Yeah, it really is.
Okay.
Yep.
But so before we start chatting, I got to tell a little story. So, last Wednesday, a week ago, they keep advertising on my Facebook. Wayne would know nothing about this because Wayne's not on Facebook. Like a weirdo that way. I think he has secrets. Everybody I know that has secrets, they can't be on it. So, so they keep advertising over at boat campers they're going to have comedy night, right? So I was with a friend and I said, hey, let's shoot on over there. I keep seeing it every week, advertise it, 8 o'clock on Wednesday nights. And since Thursday was a holiday, I could stay out late. So go over there, sit down. There's two other people. And then the there's either six comedians and a guy that's doing the intro or a total of six. Please don't hold me to that. I don't want anybody, calling in and say I was incorrect. But there were no witnesses, right? So they kept referring themselves as comedians. It's like us saying we're podcasters. I mean, we are podcasters. But it's okay. So anyway, so the guy gets up. First, the guy that's the host comes over and he introduces himself to us and tells us how it's going to go out. No videotaping. I can understand why after seeing it. And no heckling. I'm like, okay. There's a word I almost used and I can't. Let's call them wimps. I'm like, so I guess you want no participation from the audience, which is fine. Believe it or not, I know how to be quiet. So these guys all got up and we were waiting to laugh. And our agreement was we will laugh if they're funny, but there will be no courtesy laughing. I went and saw Jay Leno a couple times back in the 90s when he first came on, and he used the laugh light, where they had the big light up that said laugh when they thought he said something funny. Yeah. People would courtesy laugh. It was terrible. But Jay Leno had a couple funny jokes. I remember one. He said, "Yeah, I was driving to the studio this morning." He's known for fast cars. He goes, "Yeah, my throat's a little sore." At least that was funny.
I mean, these guys. I use laugh track with my friends. It's an agreement. They understand. I just put up the light.
You raise your hand. That's when you're being funny.
Come on, Kelly. Get to the story. Keep moving.
They're well trained.
Come on.
Yeah. So 6, 7 guys got up there and spoke, and they were absolute. Not one time did we laugh, except for when we were saying like little heckling things to each other quietly that were funny. Absolutely horrendous. It was an absolute terrible, terrible job. I love boat campers. Great place to go. It's on the water, the one I go to. I watched my Nats win the World Series there. Love boat campers. Legendary football player from Miami. Comedy night ain't going. It's absolutely horrendous. So that's what I wanted to share. Apparently, it was more.
So Wayne is not missing out on Facebook. That's the point.
Yeah, I'm not missing out on this story either. I don't know what the point of the story was. I thought David's contribution about having buddies that need to have a laugh track was a lot funnier than that story. So welcome back again, David. I know some of the things that Kelly wants to talk about are some of the legal issues that are going on out in the industry, and it always seems like there's something, Jesus, every month, every week in Florida, right? It's an amazing state for that. Why don't you kind of update us a little bit about what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, no, thank you both for having me. I would just say in general, what we recommend for everybody, anyone listening, whether it be a vendor that's trying to, get educated, or a board member, or even a manager with a CAM license. What I do is I don't try to take this on all myself. There's just too much to know. I'm not an attorney. So what I do is I just try to study and make my own, basically reference notes that I can go back to, because the volume in this legislative session that just happened, whether it be for HOAs or for condominiums, is just so much.
God, is it ever.
And then trying to remember also prior legislative sessions too, which might be interconnected or not. It's just a lot to try to put together. So that's what I do. I don't try to memorize every single thing. I mean, certain things like, say, 60-day notice for an annual meeting in an election, those are basic, and you can save yourself a few dollars by not asking an attorney, what's the requirement in the first notice. Other than that, especially on the new stuff from March 2024, I just try to keep studying it, reviewing it. And then, when it really matters, I reach out to my attorneys, because there's a lot at stake now. And the two buckets, Wayne, that I'm noticing is there's so much more administrative requirements, either on the record keeping or the board meetings, in rules, that kind of administrative side. And then there's a lot more in the financial structural integrity side, in reserves and funding. And those are two different things. It's a bit of a challenge. Some of it I think is good, but some of it's a pure pressure on the operations, on the budget, on the management. So it's just take it like one step at a time.
Explain a little bit what you said about the pressure part. Hit on a couple things that you don't like, or you might think is redundant and or unnecessary.
Well, it's tough because the state is, trying to take care of thousands and thousands of associations. It could be a homeowner association, could be a condo, and then even a co-op. We do have some, mostly in New York. We have a lot. But basically, the CAM license takes care of a lot of different things, including, mobile homes and timeshares. Yep. And so, yeah, I mean, I could get into some of the details, but I just think as far as the reserves funding and the requirements is fully funding, that just needs to be really well thought out with a specialist, like a reserve specialist. There's different interpretations of reserve funding and what fully funding actually means, especially on a pooled basis. It gets technical. So long story short, some people think that the new legislation is you need to be fully funded, meaning you have all your money right now for the next 30 years to replace your cooling towers and elevators, meaning the $30 million that you need to have it in your bank account today.
Right.
Most, if not all, reserve specialists, which I'm not, will say that's not accurate. You need to be on track with a reasonable amount of a schedule, with a reasonable amount of inflation assumption, to be there and have the money when they come due, or when the useful life comes due. So even that, though, is a pressure, to answer your question. So even getting to a point where you're more on track to have the contributions when you need, and the funding when you need it, is for some associations a large change that might have been partially funding for many, many years, or just waiving and getting that membership vote every single year.
Right.
So I think it depends on the association. I think the pressure is warranted, or it could be over the line in certain situations. But again, the state's trying to do its best over 25,000 condominiums and who knows how many HOAs.
Well said.
Well,
It's daunting.
Yeah.
It's also it's a situation where there is a lot of what's the word?
Ambiguity.
That's the word I was shooting for.
Gray area is a little easier.
I'm better at that than you two. Definitely a lot of gray area, and I think they need to black and whiten it up. And also there's going to be enforcement issues. And I think ultimately what everybody that's responsible, whether it's the property management company, the board, the association as a whole, they need to always strive on doing the right things and what's best for the property, for the safety and integrity of the buildings, and not trying to figure out loopholes and what we can get away with, because we just don't want anything else happening in Florida. But I like to brag that Florida, I think, is probably one of the most aggressive states on trying to do the right thing. But as David and I were pre-gaming a little bit yesterday, we were talking about how the our legislators, they don't exactly understand this, what they put into law and how it truly affects on the different layers of enforcement and just carrying it out.
No, definitely. I mean, I want to give a quick shout out to some of the legislators that actually do, like Vicky Lopez, State Representative Vicky Lopez. She lives in a condominium. Senator Pizzo, his whole family is grown up in real estate. So, and Senator Bradley's done a great job collaborating. So there's people that are really pushing to truly empathize with condominium associations. And then we can go on a more technical side with some of the other sides of the law. Condominium association or HOAs probably weren't really considered when they wrote some of the laws. Obviously, with Champlain South and the tragedy that happened, 3 years ago, which is amazing how time flies. That was a specific consideration, was, high-rise condominiums. But in others, to your point, Kelly, the legislators might not have that experience. They might have only lived in a single-family home. So it is complicated. The pressures are there, Wayne, to your point. But the reminder I'd say to everybody listening, especially managers or board members, listen, if something doesn't work in the legislature that just passed, that's just effective as of July 1st, about 10 days ago, and if it really doesn't work, we have March 2025. I mean, that's why we have legislative sessions every year. So, give the feedback to the right people, talk to your management company, reach out to Florida Legislative Alliance and CAI. They do a great job as far as advocating for, people that we represent, our communities and HOAs and condominium associations. So get that feedback out there, and we'll get back at it in March 2025. Nothing's permanent in the state. So we just have to have that open dialogue, and people need to participate.
And we have to make sure the lobbyists are lobbying for the right reasons. And we do have to look at the ones, and because sometimes they're lobbying for the wrong reasons. Fire safety has been a huge issue in the past, where people have fought against ELSS and everything else. And it's like, what? How can you not want to protect people in a high rise? I don't understand it, because it's going to cost money. So, what's the value of a life? Sorry, Wayne, I just had to spit that out there. Please.
Well, one of the comments one thing I want David to comment on is, I mean, when I started in this industry, 22 years ago, I thought the demands that were placed on CAMs, were definitely a lot. Man, now, you're expected to be a therapist, you're expected to be a financial planner, you're expected to be a first responder. The demands on CAMs keep getting overwhelming. I don't know. I don't know how you guys do it. I know the state of Florida, the training and what you're supposed to go through, it's definitely beneficial, but it's a lot to put on people, David, especially you throw in the charged political environment of what's going on in 2024 and just everything. It's kind of a what show, isn't it, dude?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it on two sides. One is exactly what you said. It can be a lot of pressure, especially for a newer CAM manager.
Oh, man.
I can say for somebody new in the business, it can be quite overwhelming, and the stress can really get to the core of a person, which is what a more experienced manager will know how to not allow to happen. So obviously, the challenge is when we spend, as a former on-site manager, we spend 50 hours a week. Sometimes when we're trying to make things happen and catch up on deadlines, 60 hours a week on a property, I would get connected and feel like emotionally attached to a property or to a community. And so a challenge or a stress or a criticism, especially my early career, I would definitely take, to heart. That being said, through banging my head against the wall, I would realize that that's a dangerous, situation, to your point. So for early managers, it is tough, to get that thicker skin. That being said, I am very grateful for my first 4, 5, 6 years in the business, where I'm now thinking, okay, try to throw something at me now.
Right.
Pressure makes diamonds kind of situation. Yep. So I look at it as a silver lining. And I think all managers, to a certain extent, that are trying to go beyond, say, a front desk supervisor, an administrative assistant, or an assistant manager, that say, okay, I'm ready to be the leader. I'm ready to be the one, mostly responsible, other than the board of directors. Obviously, you have that authoritative final say. It takes a person that wants a challenge and wants to be, go through a bit of the pain, and so I think it's a certain personality type. Some people realize it might not be for them, but for me, it's so varied, and the business makes, I think, a professional, made me stronger. We welcome the challenge. I find the fun in the challenge. That's what I find.
I was talking to someone in the legal profession last week and asking them what they thought about what the future looked like, as far as all the burdens that continually are placed on CAMs. And this attorney had an interesting response, stating that they had thought that the definition of how a CAM exists today might go away, and it might be taken over by paralegals, because it's so law oriented now, and it keeps getting to that. What do you say about that? I thought that I've never heard that before. That was a very interesting take on what they might see in the future.
That's an interesting concept. I think, in a way, a CAM manager that does have a license with continuing education, to a certain aspect of the many layers of what they deliver, or what we deliver, is a paralegal.
Yep.
Because it's not an attorney, right? And that's the beautiful, important role of a paralegal. Attorney might not be accessible, number one, for every single thing. And then a paralegal doesn't necessarily have to have that, final decision or final authoritative, backing, because their license isn't really in play as far as being the final authority on whatever's in question. So I think there's a lot of similarities already with a paralegal to a CAM. The one thing I have heard is people in associations might start to be creative on budgets. And when they have these larger projects that, say LGC might be involved with, or ABC, it's hard to say, but they might be trying to choose between, management services or staff levels, like how many staff they might have in certain areas, versus being able to pay for a large CapEx project. That's really what I've heard more. Okay. And so I think, and I've also heard from self-managed boards I've been talking to in the last year, slightly over, since I've been in business development. Self-managed communities are coming to us, and I'm sure to our competitors, saying, everything that we started on this call about, all these changes and all this liability and all these things that are facing board of directors, going beyond the CAM manager. I mean, the ultimate responsibility is the board of directors. So they're saying to us, this is just too much, David. We've been self-managed for some cases. They're telling us for 40 years, and we've kind of gotten by.
Wow.
With our efforts, rolling up our sleeves, volunteered, and now, we need to go professional. And I think that's a large change, from the industry. So in some cases, it's crazy. In some cases, self-managed barbers are saying, we actually have to step up, and we call it it's a higher investment amount. It is an investment in the community, and they're saying we need to go professional. And then others, I think, are trying to be creative, saying, look, maybe we can have a CAM manager and no admin, and then we can put more money into this large CapEx project. So it's great. I'm actually seeing both, directions. It just depends on what the board really thinks is the priority, and if they think the return on investment is there.
It just seems to be getting harder and harder every year on your side that I see. And again, I'm going to kind of refer to the the legislation and, you know, the desires of every state to try and hold some ownership to our industry. But again, then the demands just keep putting placed on you more and more and more. It's hard enough without that.
Well, what do you both do, right? I mean, especially something like Kelly or Kelly's, you know, project managers on site, and you, Wayne, as well. You know, for on the construction side, you both probably do exactly what I do. I don't put when I'm on site as a GM, or when I was, I wouldn't put everything on my shoulders. No, what I would do is I would call Wayne, or I would call Kelly, or, you know, Mr. LaGreca or whatever, you know, as an expert, and say, hey, this is a little bit beyond my pay grade. What do you recommend? Can you send me an estimate? I might reach out to a, you know, structural engineer. I certainly call my association attorney that's been, you know, board certified, or, you know, it's the more I think people get into, it could be a board, it could be a CAM manager. We get into trouble when we're a little bit overconfident, or we try to take more on than we can, and we don't realize there's a lot of people resources out there that are experts in their fields. So
yeah, that's a great answer. You know, having a good team around you. I know, you know, I have one, you have one, Kelly has one. I mean, don't take it all on yourself, and utilize your resources to get to the best and most efficient answer as soon as possible, and then give them the answer.
Because I'm reading what you're saying. I remember our last conversation too. I mean, in this environment, the lone wolf is not going to work. It's not gonna, you know. Yeah. So
it doesn't make sense. The good orchestra leader is going to do the best at it. And also, I tell you what, for CAMs specifically, I think time management is becoming more and more important. I think everybody needs to read the 1 Minute Manager, because, you know, when they have residents come in or board members come into their office, when they're trying to do their 40-hour week, it's with all the demands that just got added onto them, it's daunting. And unfortunately, they're going to have to say, listen, I need to see you, you know, this much a day, because I need to have this much time to do this.
No,
and,
totally
you know,
agree.
a CAM's a psychologist, a therapist, you know, a mini project manager. And then they have, now with all the opportunities for people to request more information, I mean, it's to me, it's daunting. I don't want to scare good people away from from that role. And unfortunately, I think it could. And, but you know, you just want to see everything rise.
It definitely could. Again, I see always both sides. I think it's an opportunity for a lot of managers and management companies to shine. So if people can keep their cool, reach out to quality team members, and to Kelly, to your point, to stay organized on their 40-hour work week, have different systems in place that are automated. You know, I'm studying a guy right now, even for my personal, like, you know, production and efficiency, is he doesn't have meetings in the mornings ever. So if somebody wants to meet with him, whether it be Zoom or in person, it's at the end of the day, and he'll work backwards from 4:30. So say the first meeting scheduled is a half hour. He'll say, okay, fine. You absolutely need to meet me. This can't be an email. This can't be, you know, like a Loom video. 4:30. And then if somebody else requests a meeting, then it's 4:00. And if somebody else requests a meeting, it's 3:30. And everything that they need to get done in their purview is in the morning, you know, with zero interruptions. So there's tricks like that I think are going to be critical. And if a management company and, you know, CAM managers are self-supportive, sharing ideas, continuing education, you know, sharing resources of quality vendors, quality owner reps, quality GCs, quality engineer consultants, you know, SEs now are critical, and association attorneys, those management teams and networks are going to win. And I think you both know our network, our industry is really small. People, a lot of people know a lot of people. And I view it as a huge opportunity to win, because I do think the concerns you're both talking about are real. And I think the people that handle it well and stay calm through the storm are going to just really be in demand.
That's absolutely key. And it is also hurricane season. Fortunately, we just dodged another one. I tell you, it's been Wayne experiences it all the time in his business because he chases it. But on Southeast Florida, we've been spared for what, 5 years now? Thinking of storms. Well, we're
Yeah,
having all the other storms that people have.
it's funny. I think probably the first time in my career, I'm not looking forward to the next occurrence just based on the things that we've been going through when Ian hit, as far as everything being gummed up in the system, dealing with insurance companies that won't pay, although they're going to take your premiums all day long. It it's a marathon, definitely. It's not a sprint, but I've never seen the market like this. And I don't think anything is going to be in the foreseeable future that I see that's going to make it easier. So every single one of us is going to lose: the homeowners we service, the companies we work for, and everything about it. So whatever will be, will be. We can't control the weather. That being said, um, my called shot is going to be your guys' area, the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area that hasn't really been hit super hard since Andrew in 92. So I don't know what that's going to look like for you guys, but
I
holy,
mean,
you
it's
know what?
definitely the insurance. Yeah, if we're talking insurance, it's definitely rough right now. I could be wrong. I'd love to talk to different guys that have more experience than me, especially some of these insurance agents or public adjusters. But from what I know, it almost doesn't matter what has hit or what hasn't hit Miami-Dade or Broward. The general insurance market is very global now, especially on the reinsurance rates. And so if something really bad hits, I mean, there was like Alex, our new vice president of operations, who we're so lucky to have. I mean, he was telling me that during COVID years, or maybe slightly after, when he was working up in Boston, there was huge flooding in Boston. And I had no idea because I've been in Miami now for almost 18 years. And I can't even imagine from what he was describing, like massive flooding for king tides in Boston, of all the insurance claims that they had to go through. I mean, we pay for that from some of these larger carriers and
Right.
larger reinsurance, companies out of whatever it is, Bermuda. Um, we all pay for that. If there's a California fire, or, if there's earthquakes or hurricanes that, as we say, pobre Puerto Rico, like it seems to always hit Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic.
Yep.
Like, and I'm not being facetious, but like I think people don't realize that we do pay these companies now. I mean, we look at all these other companies as far as buyouts and acquisitions and all these other things, like, Amazon and, Apple and all these, Google's purchasing, all these other companies. I think insurance companies have been similar. And so we're in a global risk market. And so we just need some good fortune across the world, so that things can kind of tame, and
Right.
Basically the carriers feel like they're a little bit better funded to lower the rates.
Yeah, I mean, we could do an entire, but like a half day on this topic. But to your point, it's global. There is definitely reinsurance markets. There's a premium that you can get if you're going to be willing to pay that premium. You're going to get the coverage you want. There's no doubt about it. But long gone are the days when you would get a decent deductible with a decent premium, and then you really wouldn't have to worry that much about what's going to be covered. I think that ship sailed at least a decade ago nationally, from what I see. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the one trick that I've learned for some of my trusted agents, and they do some really interesting approaches where, and I'm still learning, but basically the larger carriers will view somebody like in Miami-Dade, which is where I live, and represent between Broward and Miami-Dade. Those are my regions. So they'll look at a condominium, say in Miami-Dade, and they'll ask for the zip code, and that zip code will be a rate
Absolutely.
on property and casualty, which is the
Yep.
most costly out of all these 10 layers that most boards have to get. And what some of the more astute agents and teams will do with management companies is they'll document and try to make an individualized case with drones and with all kinds of pictures and a report that will actually, you can tangibly deliver to the carrier that's you're requesting a quote, to say, look, I understand you have a flat rate overall for this zip code. We're in a much better personal situation in our individual association because of X, Y, Z. Here's our drone videos. Here's our pictures. Here's the status of our roof. Here's the status of our elevation. Here's the status of our impact glass. Here's the status of all these other things. Oh, we don't have commercial mixed use. So it's like, there's other factors that an association can essentially brag about in a very documented way. And you can, from what I understand, you know, and we're doing it, we're winning and we're breaking out of this higher flat zip code rate. But it does take a lot of coordination and you know, it's education is power on it. So, but that's kind of one of the tricks that we're trying to add value for our insured.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really good example of how you can actually accelerate the underwriting process. I know for a long time, insurance companies that are supposed to do the proper underwriting on the associations, condominiums, whatever they insure, didn't really send any boots on the ground because there was that gap between the you know, the no technology available to all the technology that we have. You know, all contractors do everything by satellite. Okay, you can do, you know, of course, drones. You can find out the high impact glass by taking a picture of it, and it's going to interpret that for you. So there's good stuff to accelerate the underwriting process and more properly price the risk. I'm glad you brought that up. Good point.
Yeah, thank you. I had a property that I last managed before business development, and one of two things happened. The glass carrier had an adjuster or, you know, representative of the glass carrier updated our full declaration of glass and schedule either without walking the property or going up to both our roofs, because at the time we had 2 towers, or they updated without telling me. They walked the property without telling me. So somehow they got to my roof without telling any of my staff, or they just updated the schedule drastically from 100 panels to basically over 1,000.
Wow.
And I, you know, looking back, you know, sometimes if we wait a little bit too long, or the agent might be waiting for the best quote until the renewal, timing can be of the essence. But looking back, that's probably something that we could have challenged, you know, because you know, how can something like that be drastically updated without a walkthrough or without someone requesting access from a management team? So I think not that their update wasn't accurate, but then I realized, okay, how long have we been underinsured? You know, because
good point.
Because like we had only 100 panels insured, and we were paying some fully insured rate. So it was something that I caught, and you know, and the agent at the time, I think, just maybe didn't notice. Well, that should be, you know, you're up 25% in premium just because that's the rate. I said, no, we're up 25% in premium because we now have 900 more panels in our declaration. And so the point is, we do have to dive into the details, and instead of just kind of trusting everything, the carriers are there to make money.
Right.
And they're not the worst people in the world, but they're not exactly, you know, charitable angels either. So I think, you know, managers and board of directors just need to remember that. And, you know, it's very similar to going to a mechanic. If you're not informed on how a car works and what's necessary to be maintained or repaired, somebody that might not be the most, you know, highest ethics could essentially make you overpay at the mechanic shop. So it's similar to that in insurance, and you know, that's what we try to do to stay educated ourselves and our managers.
Let's put a little story to that, and then we got to wrap up. So
we got to wrap up.
Back in January or February, I went in to get my Volvo serviced, and it was right over here in Coconut Creek. Won't mention the name of the dealership, but you know, it won't be really hard to figure out. And you know, we had that little fluctuation in temperature, and they have those sensors that tell you how your pressure is in your tires. And the light had gone on like the day before. I'm like, I'll let them fill it up with a little air. as opposed to me doing it at the gas station when I'm, popping into town. So they come out to me and they go, "Oh, Mr. Coon," and you always know when they call you Mr. Coon, they're trying to get your money. And they said, "You need to patch your front right tire." I think. And I'm like, "They're low profile tires. You can't patch them." And she goes, "Well, let me go check on it." She comes back to me. So the king said, "You're right. We need to replace it. It's going to be $585. Sign here." I said, "You know what? I'll take care of it myself." 5,000 miles later, still haven't had to replace the tire. So just me saying, "Hey, wait a second, let's look at that." It just nothing made sense from the beginning. It's a lot bigger when you're talking about your high-rise condominium or whatever your property is. But and in the scheme of things, $585 isn't a ton of money, but it would have been a waste of money, not really money I'm looking to go out and spend. It's all like eating and stuff instead. But
I mean, there's a balance. And for condominiums too, you don't want to drive around with a flat tire. I mean, that's just
right.
You're gonna get yourself in trouble. But that's once to your point. That's once it's confirmed. It's confirmed. You have a flat. You got to replace it.
Guess what? It wasn't a flat. That's what I'm saying.
There we go. So just verifying things.
The tire's still on the car. I'm
verifying things, getting it in a second opinion expert. I mean, these are practices that will never go out of style.
Right.
Amen, brother.
It's a shame. Trust and verify, as Ronald Reagan used to say. And nothing could have been better. I mean, it just frustrates the heck out of me when people try to take advantage of anybody. How many people would have said, "I'll go ahead and just replace the tire." And another thing too, it's an all-wheel drive vehicle. You don't just replace one tire on an all-wheel drive vehicle. You have to either do two or all four, depending on what type of vehicle it is. So even that was bad information. So, okay, off my soapbox. We're way over time, as usual. Always having great guests. David, I know you're busy. I know you got a meeting that you're going to hop into in a few minutes. Really appreciate your time. And I have to get used to now saying 100 and something on our episodes. So thanks for coming out for 101 episode. Everybody have a great Wednesday. Yeah. Hey, thanks. Appreciate it. It was time goes by quick, as we were saying.
Thank you, David. It's good to see you again, and we'll see you on the front line soon.
No, thank you, Wayne, and thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it. And we'll be in touch. I'll see you out there on those front lines.
All right, my brother. Have a good one.
Take care, everybody. Bye.